So let's talk about him for just a minute. Like, obviously, super sucks. Don't want to lose him, even though he hadn't really done a whole lot on the field. Wasn't off to the best start. Um, I know that ACL. I know from experience what ACL injuries are like, but I know that the ACL MCL thing, like nowadays, people come back better or whatever. But I gotta think there's still going to be some impact next season. So I feel like this is, there's going to be residual uh, consequences for next season. So like, I don't know. What are you guys? Where are you at with Aiyuk? Like, other than it sucks, of course, but are you like, man, he got one over on the Niners with this contract now, because he's going to be somewhat damaged goods? Do you think he just bounces back and he's normal self next year?
So I'm glad Aiyuk got his contract because this is exactly why you go and get the contract is
Yeah,
because of
yeah.
an injury like this. So I'm happy he's got his guaranteed money and he and his great great grandchildren are going to be just fine. Um, ACL tear and an MCL tear, and then possibly more damage. That was the
Oh,
report. There's a guy on Twitter who is like a doctor, and he posts all these NFL injuries every week,
I know who you're
and
talking
he,
about.
yeah, he kind of does it for fantasy football players to kind of gauge, when this guy might be back based on his experience seeing these injuries. And the timetable he had for Ayuk was about 11 months. I looked at a calendar that puts him right at about September. So, we saw he was struggling to produce this year without having an off season. Unfortunately, it looks like he's not going to have much of an off season again. We'll see, assuming there's no setbacks. So that sucks. But then again, that's why you draft Ricky Pearsall, and next year, hopefully Ricky can take the next step and be that guy. And because I'm willing to bet that Debo's not on this team next year.
Hmm.
People
Yeah.
are talking about Kittle moving on because he's getting older, but I still
Hmm.
think Kittle is a really valuable asset. His cap hit's still pretty big next year, so I expect Kittle to be back for at least one more year. And I think Ricky and do they try and re-sign Jawan? I'm not sure. Hopefully Ricky and Cowing, maybe another veteran or someone are ready to come in and step up because
I
I would be shocked if Aiyuk is ready to go week one.
I thought Juwan signed a 2-year deal this offseason. I
I,
thought he's
I thought it was a 3-year deal.
so I think
It was okay. It was a 2 year deal, but for some reason I
Hmm.
thought last year was year one and this is year two. But maybe
no,
he is back next year. So
and and
that's right. It was a 2 year deal though.
and I also saw something recently, and I do not pretend to be a cap guru at all, but there was somebody saying that both Kittle and Debo had very reworkable deals. Like there, it was the article was written from the standpoint of there's all this talk about these guys potentially moving on, especially Debo, but the Niners wouldn't have to do too much to like rework and extend both of those guys in a way that wouldn't be too damaging to the cap. Who knows if they'll do that? But yeah, it's just it's there does seem to be this narrative out there that like Debo's days are numbered, and they might be. I'm not saying like that they're not, but it just it might not be a given, especially with this Aiyuk situation.
Yeah, I think Debo's got one more year left on his deal. Next year he's technically under contract with the Niners. But as we know, a lot of veteran players don't want to go out and just play that year in case
Yeah.
something like Brandon Ayuk happens to them. Then they're signing for the vet minimum next year with whoever. So he's going to want another contract. And I really doubt that the Niners are going to give it to him. I expect them to probably trade Debo in the offseason to the highest bidder. I don't think they can do the whole like, well, we don't want him in the division, we don't want him in the conference. Like if I don't know, just if an NFC team calls and they offer a fourth and the AFC team's offering a fifth, just take the fourth.
Mm.
They need some young guys coming in, and I feel like the ship is kind of sailed. I'm kind of Debo's awesome. He's fun to watch, but he's I'm kind of over Debo. I'm ready to move on.
Hmm.
It just seems to me like Deebo isn't really the same player. And it's like he had a full off season and I'm just not seeing him breaking the tackles. I'm not seeing the explosiveness. So that's what makes me want to be more okay if we do decide to move on. Is I'm like, dang, maybe that heavy workload has hit the way that he plays has just already caught up to him a little bit earlier. Like I know he's not that old. I think he's like 27 or something like that. So that's why I'm a little
He's
bit.
28 going on 29.
Oh, okay. So that's a little bit older than I thought, but he's, as a receiver, should still have some good years left in there. But we know he's not a traditional receiver, so maybe he doesn't have that. Maybe his shelf life's more like a running back, and he's coming up on 30, and he's done for. Yeah, I haven't been that impressed with Deebo. I've been pretty disappointed because I actually did have pretty high expectations. I was like, full off season, he's gonna be ready to go. He's gonna want to prove it. He's gonna want another contract. And it just hasn't been there, man. And it's like he's got a good quarterback, so you can't really make that excuse. I know there's a lot of talent around him, but Aiyuk's been bad. So it's like I feel like all the opportunities there. And so yeah, I'm a little bit okay if they move on from him. As far as like Aiyuk, it just sucks real bad because yeah, I think it is going to linger into next season. I think he's going to start slowly next season. It could be kind of like a Drake Greenlaw thing where maybe he comes back halfway through, or even if it is like week 4 or whatever, it's still like he's probably going to be eased into it. He's going to start slow. Hopefully this just allows him to like flush the shitty season he was having and he can just like get his mind right. Obviously he's going to have to battle some demons coming back from an injury, but like once he's back walking around, once he's back working out and doing like real rehab stuff, hopefully he can kind of get his mind right, flush it, reset. That's kind of like my optimistic take on it, is like just flush it and like get your mind right. He's still young enough that he should be able to bounce back, and he's still talented enough to like produce a lot in this offense. So it hurts. It hurts big time, and I hope he can just get his mind right for next season. But yeah,
So
Man,
Debo's 28. He's going to be 29 in January. I agree with Jason. He's not the same player. He's not the explosive tackle breaker, snatch your chain Deebo Samuel anymore.
yeah,
I feel
He's
like
not good in man coverage. It's I don't really like the way he sometimes he says things that just bother me. Like he just started his podcast, Cleats and Convos, and on the very first episode when he had Aiyuk on, he said, um, I feel like we've been the best team in the league for 5 years. And he got a lot of ridicule from that from 49er fans, and I think he deserved it because how many bowls you got in the last 5 years, Debo?
yeah,
Like, I feel like this team walks around like they're the uncrowned champs, and they're not.
yeah,
The best team in the league is the Chiefs, and they've proven it against you in the game to prove who the best is twice,
yeah.
and you failed to get to that game in the other years. So I think it's time for some youth, some Ricky Pearsall time, Jacob Cowing. It's time for some younger, more explosive players, and let some team who's desperate for weapons give Debo his next contract.
I would say they've been the most talented team, but best team, no, they haven't been the best team because they haven't won the Super Bowl. Sorry if I was gonna cut you off, Steven. You can go ahead.
well, I was just gonna say, like, I thought Ryan would maybe like that comment from Debo because he was maybe taking a shot at Kyle, and so he would appreciate him for that. But um, I don't know. I
That's the
mean,
other thing that kind of bothers me too is Debo and Kyle are like buddy buddies,
mhm.
and sometimes I feel like Kyle's just like feed Debo, and we got to rely on Debo, and it's like there's other players. Debo's not getting it done right now. Go somewhere else, and they just, I don't know. Sometimes the coach has to separate himself. Like you have to be the disciplinarian sometimes. Why is Kyle letting Debo come into camp every other year out of shape, but Ayuk, like he's just on Ayuk's ass every year, it feels like. So
Yeah,
there's a little bit of favoritism there, which I don't think is healthy for the team. And so, yeah, I think Kyle needs a little more Bill Belichick in him. Get rid of him a year early rather than a year late. And it feels like they might be already a year late on Debo. So if they hang on to him another year, I just it's time for me.
Well, I am going to admit that I love Debo, and so that might be affecting my judgment. But I'm not there yet. I wouldn't be surprised if he still puts together a good second half of the season and just like,
Do it, Deebo.
yeah,
Prove my stupid ass wrong.
right. If anybody can flip a switch and just like, you know what, I'm taking over. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at all if he has a really good game against the Cowboys, and
Yeah.
then it just kind of leads into a second half where it's like, damn, Debo's getting in the end zone every week. You know, maybe not multi-touchdown games, but he's making a big play or two. Like I guess I still have faith that he's that Deebo. I hope he proves me right, but I may be where you guys are at after the season, depending on how it plays out. But for now, I can't give up on him yet. I've seen too many times where even in games where it's like, oh man, I don't know how we're going to do this, and then somehow Deebo wills his way into a big play, or whatever. So yeah, I can't call it on him just yet.
I'd say
Yeah,
I'm on the fence. I'm firmly on the fence, but I'm starting to lean towards like being okay with getting rid of him. I hope he does. I hope he proves us wrong. Definitely. He has the talent to do it. He feels like it's Debo's almost more like a matchup type player. Like if they have good coverage guys, probably not going to be a great game for Deebo. But if they don't, and he can catch those slants and he can break tackles and he can get going in the screen or even in like the run game, like I feel like the Cowboys, great matchup for him. I could definitely see him popping off. But if it's against the Chiefs, we ain't even going to hear from him. He's going to be frustrated all game long. So yeah.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised at all if he had a big game this weekend, and I hope he does. Yeah,
All right,
that's
Deebo.
probably it. Unless there's
Deebo,
anything else you want to touch on.
prove me right, Deebo, and prove these guys wrong.
Well, he
I'm talking
watches.
shit, Deebo. Do something about it. Like
He was our 13th subscriber, so he's gonna be extra motivated now.
I'm sure he's listening to this
Yeah,
podcast.
that's
He's
right.
like, "Yo, what? Are you kidding me? Who's this guy talking?"
One of our
Yeah.
5 subscribers.
13. We're at 13. How
Whoa,
dare
heck
you?
yeah. That's
Double
awesome.
digits, man. Come on now.
That's awesome.
You haven't been digging into the data?
Not yet. I mean,
Seeing our
we've got a marketing expert on our panel, so I leave that stuff to him.
we got to start looking at our retention rate. When are people clicking off? Like
Yeah.
we got to get it going.
Yeah, come on. All right. Well,
All right.
I think we hit it, and go Niners.
Go Niners. We'll I would like to start talking after games on Sundays if we can, but not this weekend. Not on a Sunday night game.
Night game's
Yeah.
gonna
I'd
be
like to
tough.
do it
Yeah.
when the games are a little fresh, but let's plan on Monday night.
Sounds
Okay.
good. Go
Sounds good.
Niners.
All right, talk to you on Monday.
See you guys.
All right. Peace.